name is Ritu. I am a family constellation therapist based out of Zurich, Switzerland. I help successful professional women uncover old inherited family trauma, which leads to self-sabotage and procrastination, so that they can finally achieve their dreams and goals. Today, I'd like to share a presentation I did recently to a group that I run here in Zurich about what family constellation therapy is, why it is so effective, how it works, some success stories that I've seen with my clients, and how it can be used in your life to help you dissolve certain of the blocks that you keep hitting your head against. So I hope you enjoyed this, and if you have any questions, just leave them below and I will answer them as soon as possible. Thank you. You guys for coming. Small and cozy, but that's absolutely perfect. So today I'd like to talk a little bit about family constellation therapy. We have experienced therapists here, experienced humans here, which is really nice. So family constellation therapy, family constellations, it is based on the system. It's based on looking into the system and your family that you belong to see if the roots of your current issues go beyond your life experience into your family's life experience. And not only that, also the systemic influences that are coming into you. For example, the family you belong to, the culture, the country you were born in, the organizations where you might work, and so on. I work at the family level at the moment. I don't go in so much into the systemic level, although some of mental health issues naturally seep into my work because I have ADHD and I know a lot about that. So when there's a client in front of me who has that and I recognize it, I'm able to share and just point them in the direction. If that's relevant, then they go further and search for themselves. Okay, so family constellation, I kind of wrote it out here. This part we can look at later. It is, in the work that I do, it's based on four main principles. The balance between give and take. Let's start with here. So when the balance is off between give and take, so if as a child you had to give more to your parents rather than being able to receive, then the balance is off. And when this balance is off, not only does the giver feel it, but the taker also feels it. And it creates an imbalance. So systematically, as a system, between you as the giver and the parent as the taker, this imbalance is constantly trying to balance itself. And it comes up in all sorts of ways that literally throw you off balance. So family constellation, in a session, some of that can surface. The next concept that I'm very, very interested in is karma, because I come from like a yoga background and it's just my personal interest. I love the concept of karma. I believe in reincarnation. But karma you don't have to believe in a past life in order to believe about karma. You do something and there's a consequence of what you've done. And in this lifetime, in just one lifetime, things come back super, super quickly, especially in the age that we are now. So looking at yoga philosophy, currently we're in an age called the Kali Yuga, in which time speeds up. So any action has a reaction much faster than, let's say, 1,000 years ago. So if you've done something, if somebody has done something bad to you, let's say, when you were 20 years old, by the time you're 30 or 40, already this is coming back to balance. That means that person is realizing what they have done exactly to you, because life gives that same experience back to them. In a family constellation, um, through the family constellation principles, you're much faster at seeing, okay, 10 years ago I did something to my cousin, or like when we were kids I beat her up too much, whatever. Through these principles, the connections are much more obvious sooner. So now at almost 40, I'm realizing that, okay, I did certain things and now I'm experiencing something so strangely similar. It's weird. It's like I'm time travel back into that scenario, what's going on. And then you're given a chance to bring that back to balance karmically. The next concept that is big in my work is loyalty. So loyalty, and the other one is love. So loyalty and love go hand in hand very much. Out of loyalty towards the family system, a family of origin, in order to be loyal and to belong, we make lots and lots of personal sacrifices. So, for example, give a personal example. My mother is a sociologist. She has a doctorate. Now she's a professor, and so on. In her mind, getting a job, being in the system, in the working system, is so important. And in order for me to be loyal to her, be her daughter, it's necessary that I sacrifice my wish to be self-employed, because then she will disown me. So that my loyalty is preventing me from self-actualizing. In again, through the constellation, you get an insight into what is driving this. What is the drive behind the other members in your family that has caused them to adapt this life? Once you have an understanding of their story, you can really truly leave their story with them and feel more free to make your own story. And finally, love. Out of love, we make extreme sacrifices. So one of the main principles in Family Constellations, that the founder of this type of work, Bert Hellinger, who's German, who has passed away, he said, it's called magical love that a child has. So as a child, let's say your mother is sick. You may decide, I would rather be sick so mom doesn't have to be sick anymore. So you take on a lot of this burden, a lot of this karma. And according to some of the old cases, certain children have literally died in order to try and save the mother or the father or another loved member of the family. They try to take on this pain, they try to take on this burden, hoping that, thinking magically through their love, thinking that this is going to make the other person's pain less. But this is a childlike thinking. It doesn't do that. So the love underlies all of the work in constellations. The entire system is built. The strongest foundation, the strongest part of the foundation is love, and that influences a lot of the patterns in the family. So why is this important? Why is this so useful? Because it is like empathy on speed. So in a constellation, what happens is you get to literally step into the shoes of another member of your family or in your system. And when you do that, you feel what they're feeling, and it's like having empathy, but it's on an experiential level. So it's an empathy at a really high level that once you know it, you can't unknow it. And once you have this level of understanding for somebody in your system who in the past you might have been angry or upset with, you can no longer be angry. So, for example, let's say you have an appointment with a friend and they are late, an hour late, and you're so angry. You're like, I can't believe my friend has insulted me. How dare they? Blah, 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 blah. Finally, an hour later, they show up and they tell you, I'm sorry, I was in a car accident. Once you know that, can you possibly be angry at your friend? You can't. So let's say you're angry your whole life at your father. I'll give my example. I was angry for many, many years at my father. He wasn't around. And then in a constellation, unknowingly, I stepped into his place and I sensed my attention literally went out the window. All I could do was look out the window, and I was so happy to see the leaves and the trees out the window. Later, when I realized this was my father, I couldn't be angry with him because that was just himself. He was himself. His focus was outside, not towards family or children. How can you be mad at somebody just for being them, you know? So this kind of empathy, once you know, you can't unknow. And through that, a huge amount of healing and relief comes upon you when you no longer have to hold on to a resentment or hurt feelings towards somebody because you know why they did it. You can no longer carry on those feelings, and that's a huge relief. I'll share a quick story about the love that I wanted to talk about. So I had a client earlier this year. I've worked with her also last year. And we met and we did a constellation. And the session was about some fights she was having with her husband about money. So the man was trying to control, like, how you're not careful or you're spending too much, blah, 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 blah. And in her mind, she just wouldn't understand. She's like, but I have a certain standard. I don't want to buy secondhand things. I want to buy new things, and blah, blah, blah. We did a constellation. When she stepped into her husband's place without realizing that this is him, the feelings that she had of she could feel the responsibility, she could feel the pressure on her shoulders, on her own shoulders. She could feel the weight of carrying a family. And then when she realized that this is her husband, she's like, oh, I guess I shouldn't be so hard on him because it's already hard on him. Like this responsibility is already hard. And through that, some kind of like a tap that was closed in her heart of the love opened. So the love towards her husband started to flow in that moment. 3 days later, she had an IVF treatment. She's been trying for 2 years and has had surgeries to fix or to address certain reproductive issues in her body. 3 days later, she had the treatment and it was successful, and now she has children. So, and I believe at the soul level, the baby was waiting because it didn't believe that there's love between this man and the wife. And what kind of baby wants to come into a love? Well, there are some, actually. But this baby didn't want to come into a couple, into a mother and father who there's no love. Now the baby sensed that, no, there is love here. I'm willing to come in, and entered her womb, on the spiritual level. So that's the power of the love, that once you can experience it flowing again, the other souls in the system respond. So how does this work? It works through the soul. So in a constellation session, we set up the way I work. I don't work with representatives, I work with placeholders. So you yourself are taking the position of the different people in the system, or the different concepts in the system, and you yourself are, in a way, channeling or translating the information that's coming, and I'm helping just to reflect it back and help you to come to your understanding of what this message might mean for you particularly. So you take different places. Let's say this is mom, dad, husband, son, grandfather, I don't know, or yourself. And then you step into each place, but you won't really know who you're stepping into. That way you can give me unbiased information. And then it's unbiased, it's unfiltered, it's direct, and it's firsthand. Like you're the one receiving the information, and you can't. I'm not like making it up. It's coming from you. It's coming from another part, and that part that is coming through is the soul level. So how does that work? At the soul level, there's one soul that is amongst all of us. There's a oneness. There's one consciousness that is shared amongst all of us. In a constellation, that oneness that is the same between, let's say, you and your mother, that oneness is giving you that information. So for a moment, you are really accessing that oneness from that person in the system. And the information that comes is very, very, like you can't make it up. I'll give you an example. So the last, somebody I worked with recently, we did a constellation and we set it up, and she took the place of her father without knowing. And suddenly she's like, I see a certain type of pants, like Indian pants, dhoti. It's called a dhoti. It's like a skirt, like a long cloth. You wrap it around like pants. And then she's like, yeah, I see this dhoti. I see a specific color, and I have this feeling of protectiveness. And then later, when we did that, I'm like, did your father often wear these clothes? And she's like, yeah. You know, how would she know? Where did this information come from in that moment? She had no idea I even put her father there. She's brand new, zero experience with constellations. This is one example, how the soul communicates. Another example is with another client. We had set it up, and she was having certain challenges with her partner at the time. The moment she stepped into her partner's place, her phone rang, which was quite unprofessional, but whatever. Phone rang, she took the call, and it was her partner. And it's like, it's I don't know, it's beyond a coincidence. So this is how the soul, the oneness between the individuals is communicating. Yeah, and I shared these two examples, and I also shared the example of my father when I couldn't stop looking out the window. You know, I couldn't, honestly, there were different people, and with my mother, there was this like heaviness, there was this drive, career, blah, blah, blah. My father was like, oh, look at the tree, it's so beautiful. Really, and later I was like, that explains it. He just wasn't ready. He just wasn't ready to be a dad, and that's okay. You know, once you see, once you feel him, it's okay. You can be okay with it. Yeah. So why and how this can help, and why this might be another modality to try. So, for example, Cassandra here, you're a therapist, and you have different modalities. And I also believe that one way does not solve every problem. You need to come towards one problem from all the different angles using multiple different techniques. Once in a while, sometimes when something is stuck and it's just not moving, it's the love that is blocked. The love is not flowing because of mainly most often, because in my experience so far, most often because of misunderstandings, innocent misunderstandings and misinterpretations at a childlike level, also at the family level. So for example, an uncle who was rebellious, let's say, needed to be an artist, let's say, but the family were accountants. and he was cast out of the family. It was a simple misunderstanding. The family couldn't understand how one person can be so different, whereas he felt so misunderstood because he's like, how can my family not accept me for who I am? So often it's the misunderstandings that absolutely put a stop on the love. Like there's if this is the pipe, it becomes like that. The valve is blocked. The valve is broken. And constellations can be another angle to come towards the problem, so that the love can start to flow again through this level, this like super empathy that I mentioned earlier. And once the love starts to flow, it works and it solves problems in its own way. Like you can't really predict how it's going to play out. Love is the highest force in the universe. Probably. I don't understand it completely, but I'm working on it. And once that can flow, its power takes over, and I don't know, solutions happen. So that's what family constellations are.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you want to know more about how you can work with me, check out my website, thelifester.com, and feel free to book a free consultation with me. Looking forward to seeing you soon.